oceans. And that location is perfect because it became a melting pot for everybody going literally all over the world. They would stop in Corinth. The history of Corinth is that Corinth had been burnt down due to war. And the emperor wanted to rebuild it. So he invited everybody from the Roman Empire to please come to Corinth. He would sponsor the rebuilding of Corinth if they would come. So imagine that it is a seaport. And people came there. These were people who were loud, rough, dirty, corrupt, and they didn't know anything about God. And so the people who lived as Corinth evolved to become a metropolis, Corinth became a very corrupt place. The people who lived there were used to corruption. In fact, if you were talking about a prostitute, you will call a prostitute a Corinthian girl. If you are trying to go and drink and carouse and go and get a prostitute and all the rubbish, you will say, let's go out and Corinthianize. That's how bad it is. And so when we talk about Corinth, you have to understand that when Paul now went back to Corinth, the people he met in Corinth, they started to listen to the preaching and the teaching of Paul. That's why he spent so long there. You know, where the Bible says where sin doth exist, grace also so much more abound. That's part of why you hear that. He stayed there. Many people started to believe. And as corrupt as they used to be, they began to be as spiritual as they used to be corrupt. Because they know how much God had forgiven them. And so there was a lot of giftings in the church at Corinth. The people in Corinth, there was a lot of giftings amongst them. That's why Paul says you don't lack in the gifts. They had giftings, they spoke in tongues, they saw miracles. These people were zealous for God at the beginning. And so Paul was there in Corinth. And of course, they arrived, Paul arrived, and Priscilla and Aquila arrived around the time of the Isthmian Games. When Paul would write a letter in Corinthians to the Corinthians and talks about a crown that will perish, he was referring to the physical crown that you will receive when you participate in the Isthmian Games. The Isthmian Games were the biggest in the Roman Empire, second only to the Olympic at that time in Rome. And so this was a very competitive place, cutthroat kind of place. But the people understood because Corinth was the first place after Rome that would also host the gladiatorial competitions. This was the place they came. So during that time when they arrived, there was a lot of business for temporary shelter. There was a big need for temporary shelter because the Isthmian Games was ongoing when they arrived. And so Paul began to work with Priscilla and Aquila. And during the time they were there, Silas and Timothy came to join Paul in Corinth. And then Silas brought the second gift from Philippi, from Corinth. And Timothy came with Silas from Corinth. You have to remember they're both pastoring Thessalonica and Philippi at that point. They came from there to meet Paul in Corinth. At this time, once they brought the gift, Paul stopped working with Priscilla and Aquila and ministered full time. And it is not strange. I've had people who say, God called me to ministry so I won't work. I don't know which Bible they're reading. It is only when you have enough from work, from your career, maybe you are now retired or you have enough from what you are doing or been doing, that you step aside and you become full-time in ministry. You are not supposed to eat the church to death. You're not supposed to be spending church money to live. You are supposed, as a for him. We often separate ministry from our job, but your ministry in your job should be tremendous. At your job, they should know you as a believer. They should know you. There's a saying that I saw on a billboard in London, in front of the church, that says, if Christianity were a crime, will there be enough room, enough evidence to convict you? And so while Paul was now doing full-time ministry in Corinth, well, they brought news from Thessalonica. This was when Timothy was the pastor in Thessalonica. Remember, he left him there. And Timothy said, well, there is persecution now in southern Galatia, especially in Thessalonica, but these people are standing strong. They're not backsliding. And of course, he also gave him quite some disturbing news that somebody had died, and these people are wondering about life after death. And also, Paul, when he heard all of this disturbing news, that's when Paul wrote 1 Thessalonians, the first letter to the Thessalonians. He wrote it while he was in Corinth, and he sent it with Stephanas and Erastus. If you remember, Erastus was the city treasurer who got saved in those days when Paul had stopped in Thessalonica. And but while in Thessalonica, there were several people also who had gotten saved, who were part of the church. And so while Paul is in Corinth, he saw tremendous things happen, conversions, miracles, and that's when he took his voluntary Nazarite vow, and he kept his hair long that I talked about. And the letter he now wrote to the Thessalonians, he heard news later on that they had misunderstood what he wrote about life after death, about the end and Jesus' return. And so he heard that people were quitting their jobs and they're not working, they're loafing around. Paul is still in Corinth, but these people are going to visit and to give him the news. So Paul writes another letter to the brethren in Thessalonica. That's when he wrote 2 Thessalonians. It's the scripture we read when somebody dies, and we talk about life after death and all of that. That's when he wrote 2 Thessalonians. And during that time, while he's still in Corinth, this is now 2 years later on while in Corinth, or 18 months later on in Corinth, the Jews arrest Paul. But Gallio, who is the governor, the proconsul, releases him. But the Jews who arrested him got upset, and they seized a guy called Sosthenes, who was the ruler of their synagogue, and they beat him up. And the governor conveniently ignores this. He doesn't want to be involved in their religion, but he has already released Paul. So Paul now leaves Corinth. He goes back to Ephesus. Now you see somebody who is being arrested, who is being beaten by the Jews. Most of his troubles came from the Jews. The same way that the troubles of Jesus came from them. But they keep going back to them because they wanted these folks to be saved. They go to them first. So Paul now leaves Corinth and he goes back to Ephesus together with Priscilla and Aquila from Corinth. When they got to Ephesus, Priscilla and Aquila, the guys who came from Rome, they decided to settle down in Ephesus. But Paul decides to leave and he sails back to Caesarea, and then he went to Jerusalem to give a report of everything that had happened on that second journey. And after that, he went back to his base, which is Antioch in Syria, to stay. Now, I want to tell us quickly how the other books came in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll close. So after he went back home from this second journey, remember the first trip was Antioch, Iconium, Lystra. The second one was Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea, and he went to Corinth and back to, went to Ephesus and back to Corinth. At this time, his third journey, it had to do with, mostly with Ephesus. During the time that the emperor expelled people from Rome, there was also a young man called Apollos. He's from Alexandria, Egypt. This guy had come from there, and he came to Ephesus, and from Ephesus he came to Corinth, and then from Corinth he went to Ephesus. Paul had now gone to Ephesus through the interior in Acts chapter 19, verse 1. It says, while Apollos was at Corinth, of course he came from Rome to Corinth, to Ephesus, and Ephesus to Corinth. It says, while Apollos was at Corinth, Paul took the road through the interior and arrived at Ephesus. And he found some disciples and asked them, did you receive the Holy Spirit when you believed? They answered, no, we've not even heard that there is a Holy Spirit. So Paul asked, then what baptism did you receive? They said, John's baptism. Paul now explained the difference to them. And then Paul, verse 6, when Paul placed his hands on them, the Holy Spirit came on them, and they spoke in tongues, and they prophesied, and there were about 12 men in all. Now, these 12 men were the disciples of John the Baptist. These folks had kept themselves together after John the Baptist was beheaded, and they had stayed in Ephesus all this while. And so now there is a new batch of powerful people that Paul has just rediscovered, laid hands. Remember, Paul wasn't there. He was young when John the Baptist was ministering, then Jesus and all of that. So now he met these older people, who 12 of them in number, who now have now become indwelled by the power and the presence of the Holy Spirit. And so these people got saved under Paul, and they received the Holy Spirit. And so these people eventually will become critical, because they now join and become part of Paul's group of workers, together with Silas and Timothy and Titus and Luke and Jude and all of these people. They became a powerful force that literally turned that whole region and literally the Roman Empire upside down. So during this time, of course, Apollos leaves Corinth, and after Apollos leaves, Barnabas came to visit Corinth. Remember, Paul had a disagreement with Barnabas and he went back to his place in Cyprus, but he came to visit Corinth. Obviously, the disagreement they had was not permanent. Something had happened, they had made up, and because that disagreement was terrible, the Bible says they had a sharp disagreement, which when you explore the Greek and the depth of what happened with them when they disagreed over John Mark, they actually exchanged blows. But now Barnabas is back in Corinth. Of course, he and Paul have settled. Also, Peter and his wife, they come to visit Corinth. Peter is followed by signs and wonders and miracles. When Peter came to Corinth, of course, people got saved, people got healed, people got restored. And of course, there was what is called the Corinthian body, people who from Corinth who now decide. Anyway, to cut that story short, Paul had gone to Corinth, And then he went back to Ephesus. Ephesus at the time was like the New York City of today. And there was a fertility god there called Diana of the Ephesians. And of course, Paul had an encounter with them, and all kinds of trouble happened to him. Now this was now about the time that the Emperor Claudius died, poisoned by his wife with the mushroom soup. And of course, we see that his stepson Nero takes over. And now things are going to begin to get nasty for all the Christians. And during this time, Paul was in Ephesus. And he had an encounter with the 7 sons of Sceva. And later on, Apollos came back to Ephesus and gives him news about what's happening in Corinth. So Paul writes 1 Corinthians or Corinthians 8, not 1 Corinthians, the very first letter he wrote, and we can deduce he wrote that letter. That letter is lost. It's not part of the Bible today. But Paul wrote that when Apollos showed up to tell him that there's a lot of fornication, a lot of idol worshipping, some people are stealing, all of that. So he wrote that first letter to the Corinthians, which is lost. He wrote it from Ephesus and he sent it to Corinth with Titus. After that, there was all kinds of things going on in the church where they said, I follow Apollos, some say I follow Paul, and others say I follow Christ, things like that. The people who came from Chloe's household were the ones who gave him all of this story as well. Apollos gave him some report. People came again, gave him additional report. And there was just a lot of war going on. There were women disobeying their husbands. They were refusing to wear their marriage veil. And they were talking about not associating with people or anyone because they wanted to avoid sin. And they had questions about, can we marry people that are not saved, and can we buy meat from the market that have been sacrificed to idols? And they were talking in tongues throughout the meetings, and the meetings were too chaotic. There was sexual immorality. Some people were taking each other to court, suing each other. So Paul writes a second letter to the people in Corinth while he was still in Ephesus. That's our 1 Corinthians. Now you see why when you read the book of 1 Corinthians, you see all of the things. This is the society that these people are. This is where they live. This is what they used to be. Now they got saved, but they had issues. There was a lot of things going on. That's why Paul wrote that second letter to the Corinthian church. And that's the one we know as our 1 Corinthians. And Paul wanted to send Timothy and Apollos to Corinth because Corinth was dear to him, but both of them were not available. And so meanwhile, at that same time, Nero lifts the ban on Jews because he had banned all Jews from coming to Rome previously when he was first coronated. So when Paul heard about the ban on Jews in the imperial city had been lifted, he sent Priscilla and Aquila to go to Rome. You see the strategic plan of how to do the work of ministry. It is not for you to be going to church because you are looking for prosperity or something for yourself. Jesus preached about the kingdom while he was on earth. You are supposed to think about the kingdom of God and the expansion of the kingdom of God. Rome was a tremendous metropolis of over 1 million people. It was the melting pot of the whole world. At the time, there were about a dozen synagogues only in that place. But in Rome, there were up to 60,000 Jews, according to history. And so, Paul wanted to write a letter and preempt the return of the Jews to Rome. He desperately wanted a church to grow in Rome. And so, Timothy, when he came back from, at that point, that was the same time that Timothy came back from Corinth together with a guy called Erastus. And he talked to Paul. So he told Paul that the letter he wrote, that 1 Corinthians he wrote with the people who are chaotic, talking in tongues during the service, disobeying their husbands, Timothy gives Paul bad news. He said his letter was rejected. And so Paul rushes to Corinth. There was a brother there who resisted him, and he had to leave Corinth completely dejected and discouraged, disgraced, and humiliated. So Paul, when he came back, he quickly picked up his pen and he wrote another letter in haste. And as soon as he finishes writing it and he sent it, he regretted it. Well, we don't have that letter today. Paul was still in Ephesus, and all kinds of things happened to him. While he's there, he had issues going on, and he started to write what we now know as 2 Corinthians. Remember, the first letter he wrote and the third letter he wrote we don't have. It was the second letter that he wrote that we have, which is our 1 Corinthians. But he starts to write his second letter that we now know as 2 Corinthians. And so just to give you an idea of how these letters came to be, eventually he got additional news about the things happening in Corinth. You notice he couldn't go back, he just stayed in Ephesus because he had been embarrassed and literally ejected from the church that he himself had sent people and helped to establish. And so eventually he searched for Titus, who gave him information that the people in Corinth had received his letter. And so he wrote his second letter to them, the 2 Corinthians. The church in Corinth at this point was about 6 years old. The letter, you will notice when you read it, it says, forgive the guy who resisted him and embarrassed him. He wrote to defend himself. He said you shouldn't be unequally yoked to unbelievers. He told them that you should be reconciled to him as you are also reconciled to Jesus Christ. He talked about the fund, and he told them to gather money and take to Jerusalem. On the first day of the week, gather money. You know the scripture we use for our offerings. He's talking about relief collection to take to the poor people who live in Jerusalem. Of course, he also talked about the charges against him by the false apostles or the pseudo-apostles. And then he leaves that place and he travels to go to Corinth. This was now after they have received his letter. Remember, they rejected him previously. Now he goes to Corinth. And of course, while he's gone to Corinth, he's still longing to go to Rome. So Priscilla and Aquila asked him that before all these people, the Jews, flowed back into Rome, why don't you write a letter there? So Paul sits down and writes the letter to the Romans. That's why he wrote it, in anticipation of all of the Jewish people who would go back to Rome. He wrote about Jewish Gentile issues regarding the eating of meat. He also wrote, meanwhile Priscilla and Aquila had gone to Rome, and they came back and asked if he would write a letter there. In fact, what Paul did was to transplant people to go to Rome. The church in Rome was founded by people who relocated from where they were, and they traveled with their families to Rome and settled there. And so he wrote these letters, the letter to the Romans, in anticipation of all the people who would come. It was an apostolic thing because he was asking people to give. It was an apologetic thing because he was talking about grace. It was a pastoral letter because he dealt with division amongst the people, and then he sent it to them. So after all of that, we'll see all of the journeys he made. What we discovered after that of course there was again trouble in Colossae. Colossae is the church very close by Corinth. So he wrote the letter to the Colossians because there was the same trouble over and over again. And at that same time also there was a guy who came to visit him. This was Philemon, who had a slave called Onesimus, who was a Christian who stole money from his boss. Well, he wrote a letter to Philemon. So now you're seeing why these letters showed up. And then during that time, there was all kinds of things going on in Ephesus. Paul writes a letter to the church in Ephesus as a general letter to be circulated around the other churches as well. This was around AD 62. Paul would have been 57 years old, a very old man by those standards. And shortly after that, Epaphras shows up and tells Paul about things going on in Philippi. The Judaizers, the circumcision people, had gotten there as well. There's all kinds of things going on. The church in Philippi is now 12 years old. He writes a letter to the Philippians. Remember the rich ladies who sponsor him. He writes to them. This was about the time that James, the brother of Jesus, was then arrested and he was killed. Remember the story I told us 2 weeks ago, closing 5 minutes, where James was taken to the pinnacle of the temple and he was thrown down. The same temple where Jesus was tempted. They threw him down, but he didn't die. Then they went down and clubbed him to death. These people knew what they were doing, yet they allowed themselves to be martyred. Now, during that time, Paul had gotten in trouble, was put in prison, and he was released. Hallelujah. Let's rise to our feet because we have to close this. This time, one of Paul's closest disciples, Timothy, the young man from Lystra who witnessed him being beaten and left for dead, and who had been working with him, Silas. He had then gone to Ephesus to be the pastor of the largest church in the world at the time. And so Timothy writes to Paul, talking about the things that he was going through, persecution and all that. So Paul writes his first letter to Timothy. That's how come we have the book, the letter of 1 Timothy. Paul wrote it while he was in Philippi because he had returned to that area after he was released from his imprisonment, where he was in his own rented apartment in Rome, Labs, of course, for 2 years. Shortly after that, we see some of his people begin to write their own letters as well. Luke writes the book of Acts from Greece, and Timothy was arrested and imprisoned. Things like that. There's all kinds of things going on. The book of Hebrews, we don't know who wrote it, but we think it is Apollos or Barnabas or Silas, one of Paul's apostolic disciples and workers, and it was the book of Hebrews was written around that time. Hallelujah. Shortly after that, the massacre and the persecution under Nero becomes full-fledged. And of course, Titus had problems in Crete where he was pastoring. So Paul writes a letter to Titus where he was. We see all these things going on where we can see and understand. Shortly after that, John writes his own book too. So we see all these things that we study in the Bible. You can't just take it and separate it. You have to understand the circumstances of what happened. People use what Paul wrote to the women in Corinth and tell them don't wear men's clothes, don't wear women's, cannot wear men's clothes, and women must cover their head. This was a cultural problem and a Jewish religious problem where women who got born again now said, look, we don't have to do all these laws and wear our marriage veils to our Christian church. No, and some of them did it to excess, to where they started to disobey their husbands, and that's why that came up, as we already said. I pray that the Lord will give us clarity from now on when we read the New Testament. Now understanding will deepen. But what I want us to take away today is that we must be busy and be about the work of our Father in heaven. We must be determined to please Him. We have to lay aside our own agenda and let it be His own agenda. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for what you've taught us today. I pray, Lord, that you will crystallize this message, though long, but Lord, you can help us to grasp the specific parts of it that you desire for us not to let go. Amen. Lord, we thank you for what you've done amongst us. Lord, we thank you for those of us who are preparing to go on this mission trip to liberty in just a few weeks. We ask that the name of Jesus will be noised abroad because of this. We thank you for everyone here. We just give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.